to the Birdhouse Dynasty show and our episode of some veteran buys and sells. And today we are going to cascade the market of what's going on in our dynasty values. What I'm getting at is a lot of startups are happening, and so whether or not you're targeting young players, old players, whatever you're looking at in your startups, Derrick Henry is a definite player you can add to your squad. Now, if you are going into a productive struggle off the start in a startup, probably not one of your best options there. But I have been joking around doing my rebuild around Derrick Henry, and the fact is the dude is 31 years old, but yet he just keeps chugging along. And personally, I feel he's going to end up breaking Emmitt Smith's record, but that's just my opinion, and who knows? He already did he got an extension with Baltimore for 2 years, and so looking strong, over 1,900 yards last year, plenty of red zone opportunities with Lamar Jackson and that Baltimore offense. And so Derrick Henry sitting right now down around, let me double check this. On Keep Trade Cut, his running back ranking right now is at... There he is. Running back 19. Overall, 79. So that puts him right comfortably in the round 7-ish range for a dynasty startup. Now, does he go higher than that? Typically, yes. I've seen him go as high as round 5 in the last couple startups I've done. But what I'm getting at is if you're a contender and you're staring down choosing Caleb Johnson or RJ Harvey, or you could go out and swing that pick for Derrick Henry, who you know will contribute this year and probably the next year, that's a pretty safe bet to make. So it kind of depends on the makeup of your squad and a particular build that would be able to take on the risk involved with the age of Henry. But other than the age, dude, there is no risk involved with Derrick Henry. Like, we're playing redraft. He's a first round pick. So, like, that's where I'm getting at. I feel pretty comfortable on the dynasty squads that I have Henry. They're all contenders. They were contenders last year, and I don't see them going anywhere. So I haven't had to try and trade off of him yet. Now, that may not be the same case come September or October, and I start off the season rough. Then I may be looking to trade Henry. But the benefit of that is, barring an injury, Henry probably will be producing, right? And so at that point, you will be able to flip him for good value there as well, at least probably what he is valued at right now, okay? So that's the benefit if you do go out and acquire Henry right now to help your squad go for a title. Now, another player that is in the same boat, really, that is Davante Adams. Davante Adams at 32 years old, freshly drawing in the Rams attire now with Matthew Stafford at the helm. And so he's going to see plenty of targets in that tightly concentrated wide receiver room between him and Puka Nacua. The Rams threw at the highest pass rate of concentrated targets to 2 players last season, and it looks like Adams will simply come in and take over the Cooper Kupp role. I don't see it being, I mean, you'd have to really micro-scrutinize to see any kinds of differences going on there between the types of routes that'll be run between Adams and Cooper Kupp. So the target share is going to be over 20%. He's a bona fide Hall of Fame type player, and we could easily see a Larry Fitzgerald, finish to his career. Larry Fitzgerald had 3 wide receiver 1 seasons from ages 32 to 34. And with the passing game that's going on with Sean McVay there with the Rams, I don't see a reason to really be worried about it. His age coming in to effect here. And Henry and Adams are similar in this regard. They're both playing for contenders now. They are going to be used. They're not going to, like, it's not like when DeAndre Hopkins went to the Titans, right? And they had a questionable quarterback room, right? Here he's getting Matthew Stafford, a legit passing offense, pretty secure. And Davante Adams right now, I'm just looking at it for the latest update. He's down at wide receiver 46. Like, he is right now, he's in between Keon Coleman, Cortland Sutton, and Jack Besh. Like, Jack Besh is going mid to late second in rookie drafts. So if you're able to flip a mid to late second for Davante Adams, I'm doing that all day if you need a contending piece, because yes, while Cortland Sutton is nice, he goes around the same range, same as Juwan Jennings, Michael Pittman, right? Those are some other veterans in the same area. Even go up to Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 41, Khalil Shakir and Jaden Reed 43, 44. All these guys are okay, these veterans, but they can't produce at the clip that Davante Adams could put up this year. Maybe Tyreek, I'll give you that. But with Tyreek's offseason and the struggles he had last season with injuries, there was a hand injury. Yes, that mattered, okay, for Tyreek. But I'm just saying personally, I'm going with the professional ball player that Davante Adams is and the focus he's going to have on getting a ring here for the Rams. That's what's getting me to buy into Davante Adams right now, especially at price. At cost. If you can get him for a second, I'd even do a second and third if I really needed another starting wide receiver for my contending roster. Now, I'm not telling you to go in and buy Davante Adams so that he can sit there on your bench, all right? You only need to buy him in certain instances where he's going to be in your top 4 or 5 wide receivers, and you're not pushing somebody to the bench that should be in your starting lineup, right? If you're pushing Keon Coleman to the bench, fine. If you're pushing Khalil Shakir to the bench, I don't know. See, Shakir and Coleman to me is a huge debate in Buffalo there, because they're basically side by side in rankings. But like, I'm taking Keon Coleman and shipping him away any way I can right now. I don't see with the how do I put it? Khalil Shakir's target share is much more stable than Keon Coleman's, all right? If we're talking best ball even, yes, Keon Coleman will have those few spike weeks, but Khalil Shakir has a safe floor and he'll still have those spike weeks. So, like, if I'm betting on the range of outcomes of where they finish on the season, like, Khalil Shakir could finish anywhere from wide receiver 20 to 35 or 40, right? Keon Coleman, though, he's more in the wide receiver 40 to 50 range for me right now. And that's how I'm looking at it. With Dalton Kincaid still there, the target volume just isn't looking great for Keon Coleman, and so that's where I'm leaning Khalil Shakir. But honestly, if I'm contending, I'd want Davante Adams in my starting lineup over either of them, right? Now, Shakir is close enough to Adams that I'd be fine. I wouldn't be trading for Davante Adams just to bench Khalil Shakir. So that's where it's important for your roster construction. Now, if this is best ball we're talking, then it doesn't matter, okay? You're not kicking anybody to the bench. You're just going to get the best weeks possible. So keep in mind roster construction and format, whether it's lineup or best ball. Now, best ball, I'll take them all day for a second, though. All right. Next up on the buy list here, we're going to keep down this road of deep veteran running backs, and we're going to stop at Tony Pollard last season, running back 21. Now, you can see his numbers were decent. They weren't amazing, all right? But point is that they didn't bring any different competition in. Tajay Spears is still there to be the third downish backup in case of, break glass in case of emergency type running back. Spears performed well the last 3 weeks of the season when Pollard went down. But as of now, Tony Pollard is the RB1 still. I don't see things being any differently than last season as they went into the season. And the Titans offense should improve. I mean, hell, it can't be any worse is the main thing. Last year, they averaged barely 2 touchdowns per game. And now you add in Cam Ward and his arm and just playmaking ability there. It's not like the wide receiver room got any more special. Calvin Ridley's still just the golden child there. They don't have any expensive rookies that they drafted. They grabbed 2 rookies in the 4th round, and they grabbed his Cam Ward's buddy Xavier Restrepo. So there's not a whole lot of action going that way. Sure, they may pass the ball a little bit more, or they may pass it a little more effectively, but Pollard will get some of those catches too. Now, when you look at startups, Tony Pollard's going around round 10, I want to say. If we go to the keep trade cut calculator here, I'm just using this because, of course, this is, well, basically the most commonly used site for Dynasty rankings. He's down below Travis Etienne. I'd take Pollard over Etienne with what's going on there. He's below Tyron Tracy. I'd take him over Tracy. He's below Trey Benson. I mean, contender-wise, yes, give me Pollard all day. He's also below James Conner, below Brian Robinson, below DeAndre Swift. All of those veteran running backs are basically the same type of body that Tony Pollard is, yet Pollard's down at RB 35. Those other guys are slightly ahead of him. And so if you can, I mean, I don't know that you can flip them straight up, but I know that after a startup, I was able to flip James Conner for Tony Pollard and Kyle Williams. I had to throw back a 4th, but I mean, that worked out for me. I like Kyle Williams better than a future 4th. So that's where I'm making that little bet. Yes, James Conner has more appeal for a lineup league because I think his ceiling is higher because of the way that they run things in the backfield there in Arizona. Like if you looked last season, a lot of us were excited about Trey Benson, right, and his opportunity. But James Conner, when James Conner is healthy, he is the bell cow, right? And in this case, Tony Pollard isn't necessarily quite as much, I don't want to call him a bell cow, right? Because Tajay Spears definitely takes away more action than Trey Benson, bottom line. But the league I did the trade in was best ball, and so that I'm basically just gambling on Tony Pollard getting into my lineup as many weeks as James Conner would be. All right. Next up, we want to get over to, let me do one more buy before I get to my sells here. All right, and that's going to be Pollard's teammate Calvin Ridley. And much for the same reasons I'm buying here, is that I'm buying into a resurgence for the Titans offense. I don't think they're going to score 3.5 touchdowns a week this year, but again, things can't be any worse than they were last year. And Cam Ward's arm opens up the route tree for Calvin Ridley. He's not going to have Mason Rudolph or Will Levis throwing the ball to the other team. Cam Ward, yes, as a rookie, might throw a decent amount of interceptions, but I just think that the volume as a whole is going to be better targets for Calvin Ridley. He was one of the top players in unrealized air yards last season and still finished wide receiver 27. Now, I don't know that he's going to quite do what Terry McLaurin did last season with rookie Jaden Daniels, but I see a similar type situation here where you're getting Calvin Ridley in rounds 10 or 11 of startups, even round 12 maybe he'll fall to, depending on your league mates and how they value youth and are grabbing some of those ADV specialized wide receivers. I don't know what I want to call it. A lot of receivers in the 40 to 60 range are artificially pumped up simply because of age. Keon Coleman, one of them. I hate harping on the dude, but he, again, yes, he might fall into your lineup a few times in best ball, but when are you really feeling comfortable about starting Keon Coleman in a lineup league? Like, other than on a bye week where you're absolutely stuck having to put him in, I'm taking Calvin Ridley all day over him in a lineup league. And then in best ball, I just feel like, again, wide receiver 27 last year, I don't see him falling off much this year. Yes, he is 30 years old. But again, Ridley came into the league later on. He missed a season and a half, basically, because of the gambling. And so Ridley's got plenty of tread left on his tires. I think he's somebody that can age gracefully. He's known for his route running. And so those are the types of receivers that tend to last longer in the NFL and still produce at a decent clip. All right. And no, don't worry about Tyler Lockett taking anything away from Calvin Ridley. Some other buys that I just wanted to throw in there. At tight end, you have Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, and Mike Gesicki. These are all going super late in Dynasty startups. These guys are all going to produce solidly, and they might not be a top 5 tight end this year, no. But if you faded the tight end position and you really want to fade the tight end position like I did in one league, I was able to land Hunter Henry in the 16th round as my starting tight end. Okay, so it can be done. Again, once you get outside the top 5 tight ends anyway, I learned my lesson from last year. Last year, I thought there was this huge tight end tier going all the way back to like tight ends 8, 9. You know, we had Njoku, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, all of this big ass tier, right? Well, the thing is that a bunch of them got hurt, and George Kittle was the only veteran that actually ended up panning out last year, right? So again, once you get out of the top 5, and I don't even want to go at top 5, like, to me, once you're past Bowers and McBride, like, unless you really want to go after Kittle and bet on him staying healthy this year, you might as well just wait on tight end, because you can get Ingram super late and Njoku super late, and then these guys that I mentioned here. Goddard, I know, is not pretty, but if you miss out on Njoku or Ingram, you're totally fine just grabbing Dallas Goedert a round or two later. I would avoid Freiermuth, although Rodgers coming into town, I think, kind of solidifies. I don't think they're going to be doing a trade now with Freiermuth. Maybe they bring in Jonnu. That's where it scares me, because Jonnu and Freiermuth would pretty much vulture out each other. But anyway, go in and if you can, try and flip one of your tight ends into a more stable tight end asset and pick up a little bit of value. I'm talking, this is macro stuff where you're looking at the tight end room as a whole, and if so you're sitting on an overvalued tight end, you could kick yourself back down into Goddard, into Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki range and not shoot yourself in the foot, because they're still on a weekly basis able to have decent spike weeks. All three of them are in opportunistic offenses, we'll say. Only because of Hunter Henry, I didn't want to say dominant offenses, but obviously in Goddard, you've got the Eagles offense, and in Gesicki, you've got the Bengals offense. You've got plenty of red zone opportunities is what I'm getting at. And so that leads to nice spike weeks for these guys. Now on the downside, yes, you'll have those 0 weeks or those weeks where they only get a few targets. But, if there's an injury to Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown, and in Cincinnati, if there's an injury to T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, those quarterbacks are smart enough, especially Joe Burrow. Like, he gets the ball out there. He's still going to be throwing the ball even if Higgins or Chase is out, and that leads for more opportunity for Mike Gesicki. All right, so what I was getting at is flipping out of, and that in particular leads me to my first sell, and that is, yes, I am selling Kyle Pitts. All right, whatever you can get for the guy, try and get for him. No, it's not a complete fire sale on him. What I'm talking about is pivoting to one of those tight ends that I just mentioned, in Goddard, Henry, and Gesicki. They all are old, crusty, ugly, whereas Kyle Pitts is looking shiny still a little bit to some because he's 24 years old. This is where that age is giving you artificial dynasty value. And yes, could Kyle Pitts finally come through this year and blow up? Sure. Am I willing to bet against it? Yes. Because you've got Drake London, who got almost a 40% target share from Michael Penix last year in the 3 games he played. There's still Darnell Mooney there. There's still Bijan Robinson there. Doesn't leave a whole lot of room for Kyle Pitts to actually become, a bona fide number 2 target earner. Okay. Yes, could he have the second most targets? Sure. But how many is that, and how efficient are those targets is the real question. And I don't even know that he out-targets Darnell Mooney for that matter. So that's what I'm getting at with Kyle Pitts. We all know the ceiling that he's fallen from, where go back after his rookie season, we had anointed him as the tight end 1 in Dynasty, and he was going for 3 firsts or whatever ridiculous price some people paid for him, unfortunately. But now is the time to get out and save yourself in the tight end room. There's plenty of other options. Don't crush your soul over it again, folks. Just go ahead and do it and move on and help yourself feel better at night. Sleep a little better at night, right? Okay, some other sells I've got, and these two guys are both very similar in their offense and the roles that they play. And start with Jaden Reed here from the Packers offense. Now, the Packers offense, we know, like going into last season, it was very up in the air who the wide receiver 1 was, right? We had Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and Dontavian Wicks. And what happened last year? Well, Tucker Kraft's the one that stepped up, but Christian Watson got injured. Romeo Doubs kind of underperformed, got suspended for a game for bitching about it, and Jaden Reed had all the opportunity in the world to jump in and really solidify himself. Now, he did finish wide receiver 26, so I don't want to crush your soul on Jaden Reed just yet. But the point being is and this goes into play with the next player that I'm going to talk about, is the snap share. Jaden Reed is going to be hard pressed to get above wide receiver 26, especially now with a first round wide receiver in Matthew Golden coming into the mix as well. But Jaden Reed plays that wide receiver 3 role for the Packers. And I'm bringing this up because it gets down to snap share and the type of offense that the Packers run with Michael LaFleur. There is a lot of 2 tight end sets. There's a lot of plays where one of those tight ends slides into the backfield and becomes essentially a fullback. What that means is on those plays, you can't have a third wide receiver on the field. So that's what kills Jaden Reed's snap share. Now, if they change things up and decide to make him an outside wide receiver full-time and then he's on the field, fine. I don't see it. He's not as good of a blocker as Christian Watson was, as Romeo Doubs was. I don't know about Matthew Golden's blocking ability, honestly. I didn't study that. But my point being, I don't think they will change the role for him. I think that his ceiling was pretty much met last year at wide receiver 25-ish. Now, best ball, that's fine. But what I'm talking about is pivoting out of Jaden Reed, getting into another wide receiver that's going to score similarly plus something, all right? Because Jaden Reed right now, as I said, when I talked about Davante Adams, he was right around that range. But I bet if you tried to trade Jaden Reed for Davante Adams, you might be able to get a plus. I bet if you tried to trade Jaden Reed for Calvin Ridley, you could get a plus, okay? I know you're getting a couple years older, but the production is there, and if you're looking for production, that's where I'm getting at in trading Jaden Reed. All right? Next up, or you can cross-positionalize it, too. You can move over and get a running back that is in the similar range, a good veteran running back that'll get you points. And finally, the last player I want to talk about here as a sell is Ricky Pearsall, and that goes into play with the type of offense that the Niners run. The Niners, more so than the Packers even, had more snaps from their tight end 2 and their fullback than any other team in the NFL last season. Kyle Juszczyk, you know the name, but you know he doesn't get that many touches. Luke Farrell, though, you might not know that name, but he is on the field way more than you think. And what that means is those 2 dudes being on the field means that the wide receiver 3 is not. And so that's what's limiting Ricky Pearsall now. You've got Brandon Ayuk coming back from injury and Juwan Jennings there. And those 2 are going to be the wide receivers 1 and 2s. Okay? Barring a huge setback for Ayuk, where maybe he goes onto the PUP list, which I don't forecast, I would be selling Ricky Pearsall at price right now. He went in the 9th round of the last Dynasty startup I did. There's plenty of other wide receivers in that range that you could look at that are going to produce at a better rate than Ricky Pearsall this year. If you're buying Ricky Pearsall, you're buying that and you're hoping, honestly, that there's an injury to Juwan Jennings or Brandon Ayuk. If Ayuk had gotten traded, sure, I could buy into it. But look at this. Ricky Pearsall is literally side by side with George Pickens right now. Side by side with Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins. I don't necessarily love those, but he's right next to DJ Moore as well. Even Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden should have more opportunity. So, especially DJ Moore and George Pickens, I look at Chris Olave even. I'm a little leery of Chris Olave, but DJ Moore and George Pickens would be huge guys I would target with Ricky Pearsall straight up. Even if you're look at it this way, if you're sitting Ricky Pearsall on your bench right now, right, and you have him on a contender, what are you really getting out of him? Why not flip him for a pick and gain this value? Because once the games start and people see Pearsall not performing, that's when his value is going to drop. He's going to drop from wide receiver 33 down to wide receiver 40, 45 range. That's what will happen if he doesn't produce immediately. Now, could he get enough gadget plays? Could Shanahan work it in that week's 1, maybe 2, he gets into the end zone, sure. But I guarantee you, when we look at the Trinity score or we look at any kind of analytics on his, you know, on his route running and what his expected points were. Expected points is a great stat. And what that means is, like for running backs, based on the holes that opened up for him, how many fantasy points should he have gotten that week? Wide receivers' expected points are based on his route running and the accuracy of the quarterback. How many points should he have gotten, right? I don't know that Ricky Pearsall's number is going to be that high. It's definitely not going to be as high as Juwan Jennings or Brandon Ayuk's, okay? Because he's not running those routes. He's not running as many routes as those guys. So that's my last guy for you in the sell category for now. I want to make sure to remind you to hit the like and subscribe if you like some of these. Even if you dislike some of these, let me know down in the comments that I'm an idiot, please, and why. You can say that I'm an idiot, that's fine, I don't mind that comment, but tell me why then. I mean, help me out. Jeez, I'm trying to help you out here. I can help you out on my Patreon, patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. You get a free roster review right now. Matt English and I will check out your team and its position in the league and help give you direction as to whether to contend or try and retool or rebuild. Which direction should you be looking at? Because you want to have a plan heading into the season. You don't want to just kind of willy-nilly it and well, I'm just going to make this trade because it kind of looks good. No, you want to have a purpose for every deal that you make. There should be a reason behind it. There should be another follow-up trade that you're looking to hopefully build on from every trade that you make. All right. So thanks again for joining us today. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. And remember, never stop working.